If you think progressive overload means adding more weight every single week, you're probably making progress slower than you could be. For years, I always thought, okay, next week I'm throwing 5 more pounds in the bar. Week after that, more weight, more weight, more weight. And despite what you think, I made the most progress in the gym when I stopped worrying about adding weight to my lifts. And the moment I stopped treating progressive overload as the need to increase the weight all the time was the moment my training all started falling into place and I started really making good progress. One of the biggest mistakes in lifting is thinking that progressive overload always means adding weight. It actually means that over time, you increase the stimulus on your muscles as they grow and as they get stronger and as they get bigger. So adding weight is only one way to do that. And if you're adding weight every single week and you're forcing poor reps, you aren't going to be making the progress that you want. Let me give you an example. So I want you to imagine yourself, you're in the gym, you're doing dumbbell bicep curls with the 25-pound dumbbells for 6 reps. And this week you're like, okay, I want to up the weight, I'm gonna go up to the 30s. So you grab the 30s, your top set, your first set, and you only do 3 reps. And your form broke down and you weren't feeling it in your muscle and you weren't targeting the muscle in the same way that you had the intent of doing the week before. I want you to ask yourself, did you actually progressively overload, or are you just forcing your body to do a weight that you aren't able to control and you aren't able to handle to actually stimulate the muscle with the same goal and with the same intent that you've always been trying to do? The weird thing is, sometimes adding weight is not the fastest way to progress in the gym. Again, when you add that weight and your form breaks down, you're not hitting it the way that you want to. That's not the goal that you want to achieve. And again, I want to go back to the idea that progressive overload is increasing the stimulus on your muscles as they grow over time. One of the ways to do that, and one of the ways that I would avoid adding weight to my lifts every single week or every other week, is by adding more reps, because reps achieve the same thing. You're adding more stimulus, you're adding more time where you're doing the lift, you're adding, again, more reps, so you're having more overall volume, which is more stimulus to your muscles, which is exactly what you want to achieve this progressive overload. It can be way more effective than just adding weight to the bar, because you are able to actually keep your form the way that you want it to. I do want to point out, sometimes when you do this, you will have to go down in weight, because 90% of the time, when your form improves and when you have more intent with the motion that you're doing, the exercise will get harder. But that isn't a bad thing, because if the exercise is being harder, the majority of the time that means the muscle that you're trying to work is being worked harder and getting more stimulus, which is, again, coming back to that same idea, that same point, that we are constantly trying to add more stimulus to the muscles as they grow. If you're making form improvements to target a certain muscle more, but you have to go down in weight, that is another form of progressive overload, and that's arguably just as important as adding more weight or adding more reps, because, again, you are dropping your ego, which one is going to help prevent injury, and you'll also see more progress faster because you're not forcing weight you're not comfortable with, but you're also hitting the muscle with intent, and you're doing the exercise that you can handle and have control and confidence over the movement that you're doing, which, you're going to have more connection. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna actually feel the muscle working, which, feeling the muscle working doesn't mean that you're stimulating it necessarily. But if you're having more comfort and confidence in the lift that you're performing, you are going to be stimulating it more. And because of that form improvement and because of you having to drop the weight, you are getting stronger despite the fact that you're dropping the weight, because you're performing the exercise in a way that is making your muscle stronger, even if you aren't able to produce the most amount of force in total. Because, for example, things like leg drive or cheating reps, or just forcing the weight up and not doing a rep range that you are comfortable with and the rep range that you've been consistent with and that you are trying to be in that rep range to stay consistent with your lifting. Even if you are lowering the weight, there are instances where that still yields more progress than actually upping the weight. Now, this is where it gets kind of contradictory. Despite that, ugly reps in bad form isn't necessarily bad. Better form does not mean perfect form. So there's an analogy that I want to use for this, is the difference between a safe driver and a good driver. A safe driver, in the same way of using perfect form, a safe driver sticks to the speed limit the entire time. If they're on a 35, they're going 35. If they're on the freeway, they're going 65. They don't take risky or any aggressive moves because they want to be safe. They don't want to get in an accident. But then a good driver is someone who knows that, okay, if I'm going the speed limit, but everyone else on the road is trying to go faster than me, yeah, it's the speed limit, but it's more important to go with the flow of traffic, and you're not going to get pulled over if you're going with the flow of traffic as long as it's reasonable. If the flow of traffic is going 20 miles per hour over, which is like almost never happens, but that good driver knows, okay, flow of traffic is going this speed. I need to match that because it is safer, prevents you from getting an accident. You're keeping up with the pace of everyone else, which is going to prevent you from getting hit and prevent you from getting in the way of other people. And the same way, they might take a little bit more risky, aggressive moves rather than waiting for the perfect moment, because they understand the safety of the situation, and that sometimes the best way, the most efficient way to get to where you are trying to go is to take a little bit of a riskier move, knowingly that it is safe. In the same aspect here, because I would say that if your form isn't breaking down by the end of a set, you aren't pushing yourself hard enough. Even if you're doing a good amount of reps, even if you're doing like a decent rep range, you're not going super heavy. If your form isn't breaking down and you're not having a harder time controlling your form and keeping it where it needs to be, you aren't pushing yourself hard enough. Progressively overloading can be applied to this exact situation at the end of a set, because if you're trying to achieve more reps for the progressive overload and keep stimulating your muscle, if you give yourself a bit of a cheat rep, a little bit of a swing, a little bit, if you're on bench or something, if you give a little bit of a hip thrust just to get that extra rep or two, that is progressive overload. Because regardless, if you cheated on the rep a little bit, your muscles still have to work regardless. Even if they're not having to produce as much force, they still have to work. So cheating on those last couple of reps is a perfect example of being able to add those extra reps and taking a little bit of a risk, even though it's perfectly safe, as long as you're not doing weight that is obviously too much for you. Because in the end, progressive overload, again, is just about providing more stimulus to your muscles over time, rather than worrying about the weight, which is the simplest way to put it. It's the way that you hear online all the time: up the weight every single week, every single 2 weeks, up the weight to progressively overload so your body keeps getting that stimulus. There is more depth to that. Upping the weight is a lot of times not the best way to go about it. I hope you learned a lot from that video. I hope it helped you out. I hope you can sort of apply this to your lifting and apply this to when you're in the gym, and you can actually start making that progress more consistently and not forcing yourself to do weight and stuff that is not being effective for your goals. That's all I have for this video. Again, hope you learned something. Do all the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. That's all I got. Have a good one, bro.